Hello and welcome, everybody. I'm here with Colleen.
Hello.
And today we are here with Jenny Stinson. Hi, Jenny.
Hey.
So, Jenny is a colleague and friend, fellow licensed Reiki master teacher with the ICRT, although fellow with Colleen. I'm still in the training program. And founder of the Peace Room, where she lives in Boise, Idaho. So the Peace Room is her Reiki space, and they have all sorts of exciting things and other teachers that guest appear in the
Mhm.
Peace Room, right, Jenny?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know you do like sound healing and things like that. Just I follow you on social, so I'm
Yeah.
always seeing what you guys are up to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. So if you're in the Boise area, it's always a amazing and beautiful place to check out and Reiki classes and all of those kinds of things too. So we are excited to have Jenny on the podcast today because so what you might not know behind the scenes is that we always have a bit of an agenda and a written agenda and some things that we know that we're going to talk about. And so Jenny's topic today is exciting because Colleen and I were both like, oh, we didn't know that you were doing that. It's also a topic that we haven't had on here. And some of her work that she is doing with people that are in the Idaho Justice Project or Idaho Justice System. She is teaching or working with somebody that is incarcerated still.
True.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're really excited to hear about that as well as the other things that Jenny does. So welcome again. Jenny, why don't we go ahead and just start with your story and how you came to Reiki and anywhere else that takes you.
Okay. So I was contemplating my timeline when you asked me what my story was, and it started quite some time ago. Probably I say in the 1990s. It sounds like so long ago now. Almost I could be saying the 1890s. But my uncle, who was a Catholic priest, was retired at Notre Dame. And I lived in Chicago at the time. And I would go over and visit him in South Bend because it was so close. And I went over there, and he said that he hadn't told me prior in our prior visits, but that he had been diagnosed with a type of cancer. And one of his buddies told him that he knew a guy who did Reiki, and he put his hands on him, and miracles happened. And so Father David said, what is there? What do I have to lose? I might as well try it. And he went to this guy for probably a month or two. I don't really remember how long he went to him, but it wasn't for very long. And but went regularly and went back to the oncologist. And when he went, the doctor said, "What have you been doing?" And he said, "I've been getting, energy healing." And his cancer was completely gone. The doctor said, "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." And it never came back. And he lived another, I don't know, 15, 20 years. And he died when he was in his 90s, I guess. Or he was about 90. I don't know exactly. Um, but that was the first I'd really heard of Reiki. And at the time, I thought, well, you must have to be something really special, have some special gift. And so I kind of just stuck it away. And then I would hear about it periodically. And then when I moved to Boise, a neighbor of mine came over, and I mean, she was kind of a loud. We have a golf course behind us, and she would be out there playing golf with the ladies. And we had kind of bonded over our animals because we lived across the way. And she said, "I just got my Reiki certification." And I'm thinking, there is no way that you got your Reiki. Um, and I thought, if she can do it, anybody can do it. And so I found a teacher in Boise, and I didn't know it at the time, but it was the first class she had ever taught. But she was certified through the ICRT, and that's what I was looking for because I was a teacher my whole life, and I believed in standards and all that. And but she was licensed with the ICRT, and so I went to take her class. Three of us signed up, and I was the only one who showed up. And she was so nervous, and she says, "Would you like to come back when there are more people? You can leave, and we can do this another time." And it was like, I mean, it took a lot of courage for me to go do that. And so I said, "No, we're here. We're doing this." And so we did it. It was the attunement before the Holy Fire. So the walking around and blowing the cymbals and all that. And so I was attuned. It didn't take very long that first day. And she read from the book, and she was very nervous, but she was so, 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 so sweet. And so I said, "I'll be back tomorrow." And came back the next day and got the second attunement. And she was exactly what I needed, because I felt like I had to go and learn a lot on my own, really, and practice, because even though I knew I had it, I didn't feel like I had it. And so I practiced for about a year, off and on. Not, I mean, I didn't know what I was going to do with it even. I didn't know what I wanted this for, other than I was sort of honoring Father David with this practice. And so about a year later, I was visiting my daughter Kelly in Pasadena. I went into a metaphysical bookstore, and there's a whole rack of Reiki News magazines. And it was like, what? There's a magazine? And so I bought every issue they had, and in it there was an ad for, if you already have your 1 and 2, it was the 5-day intensive. You can go to Sedona and you can take 1 and 2 and then skip a day and then take the master level. So I thought, I mean, we have a practice here at our house of taking in anybody who doesn't have a place to live. And so we had a revolving door of people living with us. And so I thought it was a really good time to get away. And so I went, and it was Michael and Laurel. Um, and I had no idea. I mean, it said the Infinite Light School. That was the name of their business. And I knew it was in Sedona, and I was going to go by myself. And I get there, and of course, I'd already been calling my Reiki room the peace room, because that's where I went to that was my meditation room. And I show up at um, the peace place, and I was like, okay, I'm in the right place. Um, and so it was transformative. It was like it's like I'd never even had Reiki before. And with Laurel, and she'd already had a stroke. Um, and so Laurel and Michael taught. It was actually authors co-teach in the 1 and 2 when I took it. And then I took the master after that, and literally a month later I came home and I put together my first Reiki class. And so that's how I got started in Reiki. And I always tell all my students, you think you know what you want in Reiki, or you might have an idea, but Reiki always has other ideas. Always other ideas. And Reiki has had other ideas since day one. Now I built a room on my house, and I mean everything. And now I'm in the I'm in the mentor program. I had no plans, Colleen, when I came to your house to do the Karuna class, when Pam LeBlanc was doing her co-teaching for Karuna, and no plans to go into the licensing program. And Pam says, well, you have this, and you have this, and you have this. The only thing you haven't done is the retreat. And I was like, what? I don't even know what you're talking about. And then soon after that, it was 2019 when I took the Karuna with you. And then in 2020, I applied for the program. Yeah, or 2021, I guess. End of 2020, 2021. Yeah, and so that's kind of where I am now.
Yep, unbeknownst to you, we had plans for you.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I don't even know what the licensing program is. I just happen to take it with the right teachers, and Reiki, I'm telling you, paved the way the whole time. So
Yeah, I had a kind of a similar experience with it, with absolutely no idea that I was going to follow this path. and also studied with Lorella Michael. That was back in 2003, so long time ago, and she was, still very healthy at that time. And same thing, ended up joining the licensed teacher program and mentored by Laurel. And then also she was like, well, I think you need to be a mentor teacher. So yes, I ended up doing that. And the same thing with you, Jenny. We had the same discussion, Karen Harrison and I, like, we really need to reach out to Jenny and have her mentoring. You have i- us, in addition to all the skills that you carry, you just really have such a good heart and energy about you. And
Thank you.
combine that with the skills and your kindness and just who you are as a person.
Well, thank you.
Yes, we were like, yeah, we really want Jenny to to do this. I
Well,
I always think of plans for you, unbeknownst to you.
oh, great, thanks.
Always like, oh, we could ask Jenny. And for those who don't know, if you have taken the animal Reiki class, her dog Sydney and Jenny are both, oh no, it's just Sydney is in the manual. He
Yes.
is the golden retriever giving Reiki to the little bird.
Mhm.
And so if you are wondering about that, this is that Jenny and that Sydney.
Well, he has been with me every single step of the way. I mean, from when I got my first Reiki, and then he started coming into the Reiki sessions from the very beginning. And long before Animal Reiki. And I just knew that, I mean, he was my partner. You know, I kind of call him my secret weapon. You know,
He is one of the wise ones.
he
Like
is,
there
he
could be a
is.
movie about the wisdom of Sydney.
Oh, he's amazing. And, actually, the cat too has been attuned because he comes in during classes and he started with Karuna. And literally, I was getting ready to do our first ignition. And this was soon after I got twisty and he had made his way in the house. But everybody's getting settled in. I hear this meow at the back door. I let him in. He comes in. He curls up on the couch, gets the first ignition. We're done. And then he leaves. He did that 4 times.
Wow.
Came in every ignition, knew right when we were doing it.
How
So,
do they know? It's
I
so
don't know.
wild.
Hey, y'all are the animal experts. Yeah. So, yeah. So he's also attuned, but on his terms.
Well, like all cats.
Yes, exactly. I've
Yes.
discovered. Yes.
Yeah, Robin and Jenny, before we started the recording, we're talking about cat nature.
We
Yeah.
actually have similar stories about
Yeah.
how our cats came into our lives, and we both got them in 2020 and
Yeah.
learning about cat nature. So,
Yeah.
because
Yes.
Mhm.
it's different than dog nature, which is always what I had was dogs. So,
He's wonderful. He's
yes.
wonderful. And he and Sydney are best friends.
Oh,
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the common phrases is like, such a cat.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's such
they're
a
just
cat.
little aliens
They
in
are.
such a
They
good
are.
way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a really fun learning experience to get to know a cat.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and Robin always grew up, not to go off on cats, but Robin always grew up on the farm with all the farm cats. And what we know more about it now that we didn't know then was really when you're in that kind of the country environment and the cats and the kittens that you seem to end up adopting from neighbors or the feed store, things like that. They're half feral. They are barn cats and they want to be barn cats. They do not want to be a house cat.
yeah.
And so that's what she grew up with. Someday we need to do a whole thing on Chuck, our barn cat, the legend of Chuck. So
Yeah.
not today, but
Yeah. Yeah. Twisty even
yeah.
has the little ear tip because he was feral. So,
Oh,
yeah, he was one of the captured, neutered, vaccinated, and re-released. when he found
Yeah,
us.
he found
He
you.
said, I think I want to be a house cat.
Yeah, yeah. I
You
think I want to
know?
be a free cat, indoor, outdoor, on the catio. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Love that. Well, Jenny, why don't we go ahead and talk about what's going on with you and the Idaho Justice Project. Now, are these separate things from the work that you've been doing with Katie Blake? Or are they related? Can you just talk about how this came into your life and what's
sure,
going on with it and what it is and all of those things?
sure. Well, it's all related.
Okay.
And so it was Katie, I got an email from Katie in I'm not sure exactly when, but it was in 2023, early 2023. And she said, I'm very interested in taking Reiki with you. And I have read Raven Key's medical Reiki book and was so inspired. And so I would like to take Reiki and then eventually get the master and take medical Reiki. And so, like I do with many of the people who contact me, it's like, well, if you want to come see the place and meet me first, because, I know sometimes people need to connect and see if you're the right fit. And I do so much of I mean, like 99% of my teaching is live in person. And so I said, why don't you come over and have some tea? And I said, well, I'm free this Friday or whatever. And she goes, well, I'm finishing up a job, maybe next week. So we scheduled a meeting and she came over to visit. And literally, Friday was her last day being incarcerated. That was back then. And so I didn't know any of that, but she was finishing up, it was a work release program. And when she came, I mean, she's this smart, articulate, beautiful, young, in her 30s woman. And she said that a mentor of hers was one of my neighbors who was also a Reiki master. And not the one that I was talking about earlier, but a different one. And she said that she had given her as a gift when she got out the gift of Reiki 1 and 2 with another woman in town. Um, and she said, but I want to take it with the peace room. I want to take it with you. And I said, I mean, and we connected like the minute she walked in the door. I cannot even tell you, Reiki put us together. The universe will put people together who are supposed to meet. And so, I mean, we had been talking for a little while when she said this, and I said, well, I think to honor the gift that your other mentor, that this woman that she gave you, I think you should take this with that teacher. I mean, it wasn't holy fire. I said, but, and where this came from, I don't even know. I said, but I will give you a scholarship and I will do the same thing. But I think that you need to honor that gift, take the traditional Usui Reiki, and then come and take the holy fire with me. And so we set it up, and that's what happened. Maybe it was at the end of 2022. I can't remember exactly the timeline when all this happened. But so she took the other class, and then she signed up. I got her in a 1 and 2 class, and she was just so amazing. And she already had so many gifts. Um, she had a healing process that she used to heal her own trauma. It was like bringing in the light, and I mean, just the way she described it was just so amazing. And already she had helped so many people who were incarcerated with traumas that they had before she even had the first Reiki training at all. Um, and so she took the Reiki with me, and then I say sometimes that, it's all about choices. It's all about choices. And she made some choices, and one of them was to have a glass of wine, and then drive. And got pulled over and got a DUI and went back. I mean, it was like strike three, you're out. You're back with no questions, no anything. And so I didn't know that. And we had already, this has been for some time. And she was going to we had worked out the timeline so that she could have the 6 months, and then she would take the master with me. And then I was teaching a master like 1 week before Raven was coming, so that the people who wanted to take the Reiki master with Raven, because they had to be a Reiki master, could take it. And Katie was one of them. There were a couple other people who got their masters right before Raven came and took that class. Remember, Colleen, it was when we were at the retreat, and you were even sort of thinking about coming to take Raven's class.
Yes, in fact, I always regretted that I didn't do that.
Because then she, of course, died the next May.
Yes.
Um, and so we were supposed to teach, she was supposed to come and teach another class, and in the fall, and she died before she could do that. Um, but so I hadn't heard from Katie in a while, and then I get a letter in the mail right before the master class that she had gotten her a third DUI. And so um, it's all about choices. And sometimes when we say, you made a decision that was not for your highest good, that's not always true. Because even Katie says that going back into the system was for her highest good and for the highest good of many of the people that she was going to be working with. And she saw that from the beginning. And when I got the letter in the mail, because there's no way to contact people on the outside except through mail in many cases, and said, well, it seems that Spirit had more work for me to do in the prison system. And she says, I'm not going to be able to take the master class, and I won't be able to take Raven's class. And and then we finally got to where it's very complicated at first to get into the system, so you can talk to them on the phone, so that you can talk to them via a email that goes through the prison system, where they can check all the emails, because you can't just send an email. They don't have access. It's a particular system through the Department of Corrections. So we managed to start talking a little bit, and that's when really everything started. And she introduced me to Erica Marshall, who is the founder and executive director of the Idaho Justice Project. Now, the Idaho Justice Project has many things that they do, but one of them is dealing with incarcerated women, because Idaho has the highest number of women in prison than any state in the nation.
Wow.
And we have the recidivism rate for women in Idaho is 60%, which means that they get out, and then lack of support on the outside, lack of rehabilitation on the inside. They fall back into the same support groups, which are not always supportive. And then it's a cycle. It's a cycle of trauma and abuse and victimhood sometimes that they just cannot get out of. They can't break the cycle. And so they go back in. And so, so one of the things that, and Erica Marshall she's an attorney, and she started this nonprofit. It's bipartisan nonprofit. It connects, it's trying to elevate the people who are in the system by connecting them with all these other entities, the government, the legislators, the citizens who are taking part in like reforming the justice system, and just a whole host of people. And so she has been working this nonprofit. And so Erica and I started working together, and I've gotten to know Erica really well. And there's this amazing report that just came out at the end, I guess it was the end of last year or the beginning of this year. And actually Katie's story is in there, because Katie has worked with Erica. Erica knows her. And to talk to Katie, she's just brilliant. I mean, and she's so articulate. And she graduated with honors from Boise State University in 2013. Um, and and then it was shortly after that that she started her experience in the justice system. So, and she's been in and out since 2013. And so one of the things, and if it's okay, could I read just a little couple of things from Katie's story? Would that be all right?
Yes, absolutely.
And this was in the report that came out. It's a very long report with lots of research and stuff on the prison system. But this is called, Katie wrote this, and this is the need for more healing and less shame in the system. And she tells a little bit about herself at the beginning. But she says, the charges that I've received over the years and the addictions I face are merely symptoms of an underlying issue, unresolved trauma, and unprocessed emotions. And then she goes on to say that the system is built on compiling guilt and shame. And then from public mugshots to sentencing arguments by the prosecutor that don't see us as people, to the interviews with the parole commission years after the initial offense, who still focus on the mistake and not the personal growth that has taken place. I am constantly being identified both consciously and subconsciously by the crimes I've committed. And then she says, I've found immense healing power in taking full accountability for my life and all of my affairs. But the moment this happens, the release and healing work should begin, and the criminal justice system should be designed to support that. And so, and it goes on to talk about how the trauma and the issues are never really addressed. And that somewhere we have to break the cycle of these suppressed emotions and suppressed feelings that come up basically at inappropriate times. And we all experience that. I recently went through a volunteer program because in order to teach in the facilities, you have to go through volunteer training, and it's a period of time where you have to do certain things. And the man who was leading the training, I have to say, was so good. He said, every one of you, and there were probably 50 of us in the room going through the training, every one of you is no different than the people who are incarcerated, because it all comes down to choices. And he said, you've made some of the very same choices that the people who are incarcerated have made. You just didn't get caught. And you've made them multiple times, and you still didn't get caught. And so it's not that they are any different than we are. And he was so understanding and compassionate for the residents of these facilities that I was inspired by him. And he's been in the system as working in this Department of Corrections for 30 years. And you don't know how somebody does that for 30 years when they see how people are not, like she said, they don't see them as people. And so that's part of it. But so Eric and I started working on a project, and my original idea was that I wanted to take women when they're released, because when they're released, they often go back to the same groups, because those are the people they know. Either the families they know where the abuse might have started, or the trauma might have been, or they go back to their friends, and they don't have a support system when they get out. And so my idea was, let's identify women who have been released and may still be, I don't know how long they are on parole. Um, and let's teach Reiki to these women, and so that they can heal the trauma, break the cycle, and start forming a community of supportive people and give them another option to find new friends, to make new connections, to heal themselves and possibly others. Not everyone who's going to go through the Reiki training is going to do it for other people. And really, my goal was not to have them go out into the world and do Reiki or teach Reiki. It is to help them heal the things that they've been through. And so the structure of it, and I was going to do it pro bono for these women. And so originally I thought we were going to start with 4 women and 4 Reiki masters. So I've got teachers that have gone through my program who would like to teach. They just haven't figured out exactly how they're going to do that yet. And they may not have a space or they may not be ready, but they really want to, but they can't do it without getting practice. And so I just figured I would be the main teacher, and then I would have 4 women who were formerly incarcerated, bring in 3 master teachers, give them each parts of the class to teach so that they could practice, so they could see the way a class is done other than when they took the class, and actually have to be in it. And then they could offer this to 4 more and maybe bring in some other teachers. And so we would be building this network of not only teaching other Reiki masters how to teach, we would be helping the formerly incarcerated women. And then each one of us, my dream would be to do this 12 times a year, once a month, with each of us teaching one class, so that we don't teach 12 times a year, each of us. And so it's going to take a little while for us to do that. But Erica is helping me identify the women who have recently been released. And she's connected me with another organization, the St. Vincent de Paul group. And St. Vincent de Paul is one of the employers. They have thrift stores all over town. And it's the Second Chance project. And so they not only do they give jobs to people who are already in, they're in the work release system. So that's where Katie is right now. She's in the work release. She's not working for them, but where they can get a job and they can go out into the public while they're still incarcerated, but then they're taken to and from their jobs. And so St. Vincent de Paul is one of the ones that'll hire people from men, women, from who are actually still incarcerated, let them come to work for them. And so she connected me with them. And so I'm working with 2 things, like my vision of teaching here in the Peace Room with the teachers who have gone through my program. And then also we're going to do the same thing at the facility of St. Vincent de Paul, because they have a classroom, and we're going to work with the women over there. And so we've got 2 things going on at the same time. So that's teaching Reiki. And I've talked way too long. I'm sorry to explain all that, but
You haven't, I'm still listening. Yeah.
but that is not what Katie and I are doing right now. So that's sort of the Peace Room's vision and project with the prison system. And when I went to that volunteer meeting and I told them what we're going to be doing, there were these volunteer coordinators from different facilities around, not just from Boise. And they came up to me afterwards and it's like, would you be willing to come to this facility and this facility and this facility to teach? And it's like, yeah, so I don't know where that's going, but it'll go the way it's supposed to once I finally get this nailed down and how we're going to do it. The wheels of justice move slowly. I don't know if you know that, but so nothing happens very fast. And that's where I really have to be patient because I'm ready to do it right this second. But and we're going to have to adjust our schedules because a lot of the people, we're going to start with women who are already out, but I've been teaching a, a number of master men lately who are interested in helping. And so it's like there's no coincidence that more men are coming into the master program because we're going to start with women teaching women because some of them have issues with men and some of the men have issues with women teaching them things. Um, and so we're going to do the same thing when I get enough men masters who are wanting to do this with the men. But we're starting with the women because that's where we are right now. Um, but so, do y'all have any questions? Should I just stop talking for a second?
Well, I think what I hear in my ear is I think people hearing this podcast that are interested in this same thing are going to want to reach out to you. And yeah, how do people do this?
I am so happy for people to talk to people about this. I recently took Shelley's Kid Reiki,
Yes.
and there was, again, the right people are always in the class together. There was a woman in that class who is looking into doing something in California with the justice system. And we have already been talking. We've already met a couple of times. And, I told her kind of where to start. And I would say for anybody who's interested in doing anything in the prison system, to first find out what the laws are in your area because you know I only know what Idaho does, um, and there's a volunteer program you have to go through. You have to learn about the systems, what you can do, what you can't do, and there are specific rules about when
Right.
you enter a facility, what you can and cannot do, and what the opportunities are because some facilities have opportunities to go in and do volunteer work where the others do not. um, to find out who the people are. Most facilities have um, uh, volunteer coordinators, and it's not always easy to get in touch with them either because they have they wear many hats. Um, and so to just, I'll be happy to like help anybody who is interested and, at least point them in the right direction. What questions do I ask? Where do I go? Who do I talk to? You know, and you just start somewhere. You can't wait until you know what to do with everything. You just have to start. And prior to this, honestly, I had never even known anyone who had been in prison ever. I mean, barely anybody who went to jail. And that was like, I don't even know. I can't even tell you if I knew people who went to jail. I know they did, but I may not have known that they did. And so this was not in the plan. And I do believe that Reiki brought Katie to me and me to Katie. And I said, we're friends now. We work together. But that was not the big reason that she came to me. The bigger reason was this. And so as far as the program that we're working on together, and she's gone from the Pocatello Women's Correctional Center, where she was working with the women there. Then she went to the South Idaho Correctional Institute, which is closer to Boise. And then she was moved to the East Boise Community Reentry Center, where she is now. She will be she's going to have a parole hearing in June. And we're hoping that they release her. But the work is not going to stop when she gets out because then she'll be able to go with me to these other facilities and we'll be able to teach Reiki. We'll be able to, because she's never been able to take her master class. And so she'll be able to take the master class. And then we'll be able to go and teach Reiki at these other facilities. Right now, we can't teach Reiki together. We could, but she's not there yet. And so last year, and I'm going to try to make this short, but last year, I was training for a marathon. Thought I was retired, but I decided to do another one. And I'm just following my schedule, and I'm listening to audiobooks and just getting a college education while I'm running. And so I thought, bonus. And I'm listening to a book on audio, and in the book, the author said, and one of the best books and programs I've ever run across is Deep Clearing by John Ruskin. And it gives you the step-by-step process for healing emotional trauma and dealing with trapped emotions, and he described it. So one of the things that we can do is we can send books to people who are incarcerated. And so I've sent Katie so many books. And she'll say, can you find this book? And I can send it to her. It has to come through the publisher. It can't just be Amazon. Anyway, so I get home. I'm thinking, okay, John Ruskin, Deep Clearing. I need to remember that. So I get home. I look it up. I sent Katie a copy, and I got me a copy. And of course, that was when she was still in Pocatello at the Women's Correctional Center there. And so she immediately read through the whole thing, started practicing it on the women in the correctional facility. And it's like, have you finished the book? Have you finished the book? It's like, I just got the book. I'm working on it. And she's already practicing on herself, on the people there. And she says, you're not going to believe the breakthroughs. You're not going to believe blah, blah, blah. So I read the book and started practicing it. And then I look on his website, and he has a professional training program. So it's a professional certification to be an emotional clearing facilitator. And so there are different rules in prison about what kind of classes you can take and things like that. And so I couldn't just say, I'm going to enroll her in this class. So I filled out the form for me to get in the class, and it was all these questions, and the author himself was teaching the class. And so I got accepted in, because he apparently doesn't take everybody, because he wants to know what you're going to do with it. And so I got in the class. I sent the questions to Katie. I said, answer all these questions in an essay or whatever, however you want to answer them, and send them back to me. We're going to send it to John to see if you can get a scholarship. We sent it in. He wrote her back, and I gave him her email. Wrote her back that very next day, you're in. And so she and I and two other people took it was ended up being a 10-week course in emotional clearing. And that is what we are going to be working with. She also got a scholarship after we got that one and finished that class. She got a scholarship with Bradley Nelson and the Emotion Code. So that's something that a lot of people have heard of. So she's working on that right now. And then I've worked with Sue Mortar with the energy codes. They're all different pathways that lead to the same outcome. And that is releasing trapped, suppressed emotions so that you can heal the parts that you never allowed to go through the full process. And so that's what our class is based on. We have a 4-week class starting on April 29th. We got it approved. We're going to start next week in the facility where she is. It's going to be 2 hours a week for 4 weeks. And we already have, I talked to her this morning, and we already have a full sign-up sheet of women who want to take this class. So I can't remember. I sent her the sign-up sheet, but maybe there's 20 slots. And we'll take as many as we can hold in this one room. But there are already 20 or more people who are signed up to take this class. And so we'll be doing it for 4 weeks and finish up, I think our date, we finish up in May 24th, 27th or something is our last date. And then she goes for the parole board hearing first week of June. So that's where we are. But Katie continues to work with the women. She's been doing this work with them there. So many of them are familiar with the process already. because she's already taken them through the process of this deep clearing. And the healing that Katie has done is just blows your mind. And, if anybody thinks that they've got it together, I don't care, inside, outside, wherever they are, we don't. I mean, there's always more to clear and heal, and things that honestly I thought I had long forgotten came up during this class for healing, and it has been amazing. And one of the other people in the class was also a Reiki master, because I told her about the class, and then she says, I want to take this. So there was four of us, three of us that had Reiki, and every time something would come up, we'd say something to John. It's like, yeah, that's kind of like Reiki, and that's kind of like Reiki, and it's like, okay, all right, you Reiki people, um, you know, and he agreed that this is so perfect. Reiki goes with everything. It goes with everything, and so he's very excited that we're using his teachings with Reiki, with emotion code, in the course we're teaching, and that we're going to be doing this, incorporating a lot of this into Reiki as well, or Reiki into this, actually. I mean, it all goes together. So,
Jenny, I was going to ask really quick. So you were approved to teach the emotional code within, like within the facility.
well, it's not the emotion code, it's
Okay.
emotional clearing.
Clearing. I'm
So we're
sorry.
calling
Yes.
it emotional clearing.
The emotional clearing. I
Yeah.
apologize. Yeah.
Yes, we have been. And
So
so,
what was what's like the difference in why that was approved as opposed to like Reiki 1, for
well,
example?
no, Reiki 1 will be approved. It's just
Okay.
we didn't even put that in yet because we want to wait until Katie can also be a master
Gotcha.
teacher and teach that. So as
Gotcha.
soon as she gets out and we teach her master, then we're going to take Reiki 1 and 2 into these different institutions.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, oh, that they've already said would be awesome. They want us to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've met a number of the women in the facility where she is now, who will be, when they get out, going through the Reiki with me in the peace room, through this program. So we're already building our students, our classes.
I love
Um,
the way that you structured it after, they get out too, and all of the volunteers and for people practicing.
oh
And
yeah.
I think that's such a great way to do that. That's really neat.
And we're going to actually probably have to break it up into, um, like take Reiki 1 and make that into 2 days,
Yeah.
and then Reiki 2, because so many of them work. And so we're going to probably be doing it in the evenings, 3 hours and 3 hours for Reiki 1. So 6 hours, and then the 6 hours for Reiki 2. So
But
3 to 4.
the other thing that's neat about it too is while, like both of you said with your stories, you didn't start Reiki to become a teacher of Reiki. It is a possibility for some of them that are called to it, especially in comparison to what they might be able to do with jobs, with records. I mean, we know how that
Right.
all is, unfairly done. And so that's another neat thing about it for those that are called to it.
Exactly. Because it doesn't matter your background.
Mhm.
In fact, the experience and the compassion and the understanding and the relatedness to the people that have trauma, they're going to be so helpful, and a safe place for these people to come and not be judged.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I think Katie brings to what she's doing now, and why she is still there. It's
Yeah.
because she understands these women. She knows what they've been through. She's been through many of the same things they have, and they relate to her. And
Yeah.
I'm really, when we go and start this class next week, I've told her, I said, you are taking the lead. I am there as your sidekick, your backup, your, you know, bring in credibility from the outside in. Um, but these women relate to her, and she has paved the way for me. And I've been out there to visit her so many times that I've met so many of these people, and so I think they're okay with me coming in too. But you don't want somebody coming on from the outside who's never been in, who doesn't, it's like you don't understand what we're going through. And honestly, I've never been addicted to anything. The trauma that they've experienced, thank you, I have not had. In this particular incarnation, I haven't. And so, um, you know, I have just learned so much from these women, and they are just like us.
Yeah.
They are no different than we are. And um, they're just paying their dues, you know. And so it's going to be an exciting, fun, amazing experience. And I'm a little nervous. I've never done anything like this before. Um, and so, that's what we're meeting this afternoon about. We met this morning already. I'm going tomorrow to meet with the volunteer coordinator and have a meeting with Katie about the getting started on this next, whatever the 29th is, what day of the week. I don't know what even day of the week it is. Um, that's the day we're starting. And, uh, and so, anything that's new is a little, makes you a little nervous, but it's a good kind of nervous. So that's kind
Well,
of
I
where
would
we
think
are
there
with
would
that.
also be the such deep caring. And I think for me, one of the things I would have to do is really go into my own empathy and Reiki for myself, because one of the things we have to learn is how to not have attachment to the outcome. And I would think this would be one of those places that you'd have to really like, it, I would care about the outcome
Yeah,
and I would have to let go of that
yeah, yeah,
because everyone is on their own journey. And that would be, I think that's when you said you were nervous. That's where I would be nervous.
yeah, yeah,
I'm hearing right now, like, yeah, you'd have to work on your attachments there. I
absolutely.
would want it so badly for them,
I know.
have
And
it like heal their life.
yeah. And Katie is wise beyond her years. She's 35 years old. And, she constantly tells me, these women are all on their own path. It's like,
Yeah.
but keep reminding me, you know, keep reminding me. And this is part of my path. And this is something that I need to learn. Um, and so I'm just grateful for the opportunity to learn it and to be working with somebody like Katie who is just so amazing. Um, it's gonna be, I think, good for all of us. And even the
It's
people that
interesting,
are, yeah, that work at the facility who have to be in there with us, um, they're excited.
I bet.
Yeah. So,
Because they would have to care
yeah, yeah,
about what happens and hopefully not seeing the people again and
right.
hopefully finding a way that they can make a different path. And I was going to say, my cousin that I grew up with, and she was in and out of incarceration really all of her life. And even before she was an adult, because of her life and childhood circumstances with her mother and foster care and things like that. So it really started there. And then the lack of skills that she ever learned in order to live a life off of the streets. And one of the things that when I did Reiki with her, and this was, when she was younger, I was the person always trying to save her, always trying to fix her. I was the one person in the family that, stayed in touch with her, that she called all the time. Um, you know, when I didn't hear from her for a while, it was like, uh-oh. When I did hear from her, I was glad because I knew she was going to be somewhere safe because she was incarcerated.
Yeah, right.
But one of the things I learned later in her life is the energy that she actually carried, although she didn't have apparent wisdom or behavior, but the energy that she carried with her was this like channeled, differently than channeled, like almost like a portal of this energy that when she was on the inside, the energy would help people connect to their own heart,
Mhm.
even though they didn't know it was coming from her. She didn't know it was coming from her, but she held that presence and later came to understand that that was part of her life path this lifetime. And that is where I had to learn to let it go, that this was her path and love her, whatever that was.
It was her gift too.
It was her gift also.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when she was on the outside, she was more in homeless camps. I did try to fix that too. It wasn't fixable. She never made, like you say, it's choice.
Yeah.
She never made that choice. But even there, the same thing. The energy that flowed through her, just from her soul, made a difference
Well, think
in
of all the people
those
she
kids.
helped
She did.
at the homeless camps
Yes.
and whoever she met.
Yeah, it was like you say, it's your path too, and that was part of my deeper understanding of just the pathways that our souls incarnate with sometimes.
Sure.
Because, like you say, sometimes, there but for the grace of God go I.
Yes. Yes. So it's yeah, and we'll see. We'll see. And I'll give y'all an update at the end of May when, we see how this goes. And, we would like to keep, we started with just 4 weeks to see where it goes. And then we might discover that it's going to need more time. We might, that it might be an ongoing thing that we come up with something different just to kind of make it an ongoing event. Maybe once a month or who knows. We don't know where it's going to go. So this is our beta, our pilot, whatever we want to call it. And here it is a month before she gets out, so that we'll be able to take it on the road all over Idaho, maybe.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jenny,
Well, oh, go
I
ahead,
know
Pam.
people are going to be inspired by this idea, whether it's in the in the prisons, or you did bring up like things like shelters and or even just within the justice programs. What advice would you give them on where they can get started, or if they are already started, is there any advice that you have for them to be able to do something like this?
Well, I think that if you don't want to jump right into the prison system, there are all kinds of like women's and children's shelters. There's different kinds of like um, shelters that you can, I think, start volunteering and getting to know the residents there. Um, and I think it's also, and I know this sounds a little silly, but getting used to the language, um,
Um,
because they're not prisoners, but to get used to the language of 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 respecting these people,
yes.
and and so I think you need to start there, and it's just like anything with the gender respect that you offer people. Um, we have to remember that they're just like us, and they're not prisoners, they're residents. And to start by calling them residents, that helps. And so I think we have to get into a different mindset before we can even go down that path. That these people are not any different than we are. That is step one, is that they are the same as we are.
Well, and I would think that many people who might be called to this work, I know for you, it wasn't that case. This was where Reiki led you, but
Yeah,
many people, it may have touched their lives in different ways through family members. And so they're
sure.
going to understand that journey that it takes people on and that path that they've been on. And whether it's for themselves or whether it's for people that they know or family members or things like that. And have the level of compassion that you were talking about earlier in in this kind of situation. And so I like that too is can be that Reiki can also be a form of activism or giving back or helping or in that whole ballpark of terms. And that I we don't always I can equate the two just because you hear stories along the road of people who are helping in these ways, but you don't always equate these two things together. And
No,
so it's beautiful that it can be another way that people can bring that light into places where people just need support.
yeah, and um and I really have to hand it to John Ruskin. Um, he's in his early 80s now, and he's still teaching this. He is so passionate about it, and he is so kind and compassionate. Um, and and he knows that this process works because he's done it for so many years. And and it's such a simple process. Some of the other things that I've read, they're a little more complicated, but he has gotten this down to like I'm going to even do it at, I'm going to do a shortened version at the retreat. I put in a speaker proposal and I'm going to be doing this at the retreat. And we can do it in, 20 minutes and still have some kind of releasing of trapped emotions. I mean, you can do it. It was starting to work with me when I was just reading the book. I mean, literally from just reading the book. The steps are so simple and they make so much sense. And when you explain it to people in a way that they can understand it, then they're willing to try it. You don't have to make it complicated. And he was so helpful all along the way, um, in every class that we had. And he worked with each one of us and made sure that we knew how to do it with ourselves and with other people. And so I just, I'm really grateful to him. And the idea that it's like this is not does not have to be a modality by itself. Some of these things that the classes that you take, if you don't teach it exactly the way they teach it with their trademark and their copyright and all this, then it's not legit. This works with everything too. And so he was so excited about pairing it with Reiki,
Can
and
you
I
give
can't
us
wait
some
to see what.
you give us some examples of like what those four steps
Oh,
are?
yeah, yeah. Oh, it's very simple. So first of all, um, it we you talk to people about the emotions and feelings and that we all have, um, because the main idea behind it is that um, emotions or feelings that don't get to complete the cycle get trapped in our subconscious. So um, when you have a traumatic event in your life, and you say, I'm tough, I'm just going to, plow my way through this. I'm not going to feel sad. I'm not going to be mad. It's really pushing down of all these emotions that we think are bad, um, because we're not supposed to have bad thoughts and negative emotions. I don't have negative emotions. I'm a Reiki teacher. It's like, and so what do we do with those negative emotions and feelings that we all have? We just stuff them. It's the dormant self, the culturally created self. I mean, it's also related. It's all those things that we're not supposed to feel. that get stuffed down and suppressed and trapped. And so they never get to complete the cycle. And so the principle behind this is that we're going to allow these emotions to come up so that we can take it through the cycle and completely feel it. And so in a session, what I would do with you is I would say, let's talk about an issue that you might be having, something that you might be feeling, and it can be, and most people start out with something really surface and easy, things that they can identify, like, I've been really angry lately, or, I've been jealous, or I've been this or whatever. I mean, so they come up with something that's semi-acceptable as a negative emotion. And so it's like, okay, all right, we're going to start with that. And then what you do is you take them through a process of getting them into deep relaxation and getting them into an alpha state. And once you're in an alpha state, because you work with the breathing and all that, once you're in the alpha state, then you start talking about, you just ask them some questions and they focus on their breathing and where is it in your body. There's a whole bunch of different things that you do. But the first step is awareness. And that awareness is that it's basically you're trying to get out of the left brain thinking mind into the right brain feeling body. And so the first one is awareness, and that's sort of that intellectual piece, that knowing what you're talking about and what you're doing. So they're still kind of in that thinking mode, all right? And then you have them take responsibility for their feeling, and they release blame. They take 100% responsibility, and they own that emotion or that feeling. Okay, so I'm feeling unloved. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Instead of just, there's first level and then their core feelings. So everybody usually starts in that first level, where it's easy to talk about, and then they start talking about getting into the real stuff. So that's being aware of what it is, taking responsibility, 100% ownership, dropping all blame. That's awareness. Then you move into the second one, which is acceptance. And the acceptance is moving into more the mental, the behavioral, where you're starting to notice, well, I really shouldn't feel that way. I mean, all the shoulds and the shouldn'ts. And anytime you say should or shouldn't, or like, I'm not supposed to do that, that's resistance. You recognize the resistance in that second phase, and that is the acceptance phase. And so then it's like, okay, and you take them through, you're listening to all of it. But then what you're trying to get them to do is to look at that resistance and just start treating it like energy. It's just energy. I mean, that's where the Reiki comes in, and then the direct experience. So once you're starting to accept that and, drop all resistance. We're going to drop all resistance to these things that you shouldn't do. That's that dormant self. That's the culturally created self. Girls don't do this, boys don't do this. Then you go into this direct experience, and then it's like, where is it in your body? Let's go back and let's find out where it is in your body. And then that's when you bring in the chakras. And that's when you connect the chakras to those feelings. And that's when you talk about, this is really just energy. Just like the veins, just like the meridians in your body, we're just going to treat this as energy. It's just energy. It's not good or bad. It's just energy going through your body. And so because they've dropped resistance to it, now they're going to experience it, and they're going to stay in their body, and they're going to find in their body, and then we're going to connect it to the chakras. And then we're going to take that. I mean, there's no judgment. There's no labeling. There's no resistance. There's no reactiveness to it. Like, oh, that's terrible. I shouldn't be feeling that, because we've let go of all that. And so it's a process. And then you finally get to the last stage, which is more the spiritual, the transcendent, the integrating, and that is the witness. And it's the observer. For people who don't like the word witness, that kind of bothered me a little bit, because it brought back the religious, the witnessing, Mm-hmm. So, see, I had to work through that, because that was part of my religious trauma. And then, so I worked through that, just that word, and because I would use the word observer. I prefer that word. It's the same thing. It's just like what Holy Fire does and helps you with your religious trauma. So you can see all the parallels here. And so you basically detach from this feeling. You watch it from an overhead perspective, like you're watching it on a movie screen or however you want to watch it. And then you're able to let go of it because you're detached from it. It's not yours anymore. And then you bring in the light and you let the light come in, and then the light takes it with it, basically. I mean, there's different ways to use the light, but to me, it's like I bring in the light of Reiki, and the light of Reiki comes in, and then it transmutes it, and then it just goes with into the light of Reiki, and then you bring them back out, and you kind of now come back to your body, that kind of thing, and so you bring them back out of it, and they're not triggered by whatever it was at the beginning anymore. And it is amazing. And so, I mean, that was just a little bit. And so we didn't
Yeah,
talk about a
rough.
specific issue, but that's what I'm going to do at the retreat is I'm going to start with heart math to get them into that space of gratitude and compassion. Because I've done the heart math, all the heart math training. And so people know about that. They've heard about it. It's not that weird. Um, and so I'll take them in the heart math thing, and then I'll have them come up with an issue, and then we're going to work through all 4 steps. And then at the end, we're going to do self Reiki to heal the part that ever allowed it to get suppressed or wherever it was or whatever, to do the self Reiki at the end. So it's very interactive. So that's what I'm going to do at the retreat.
Oh, I can't wait. The retreat she's referring to is the International Reiki Retreat in Sedona. Yeah,
Over Labor Day weekend
yeah. And we'll be
at the
there too.
Mago Retreat Center.
Yeah, we'll be there too. I'm
We'll
excited for
be
that.
there too.
So, I mean, you can see it's awareness,
Yeah.
it's acceptance, then it's direct experience and witnessing or observing.
It makes so much sense and why it's so powerful with Reiki.
I know.
Yeah,
I
they're
mean, it
so
is Reiki.
compatible.
It's just like a Reiki process. It comes into every single step.
The other thing that you brought up that I want to make sure I ask, you talked about appropriate languaging.
Hmm.
Where do we learn about that? Or can you share some of it? Just like you said, they are not prisoners, they are residents.
Right.
So I would love to know that. I mean, I didn't, of course, it's like so many other things we're learning. There are better ways to say things, and
Yeah.
I would want to do that.
Yeah. And they're facilities. I know, it's the Idaho Department of Correction, but they're correctional facilities. I mean, even prison is such a loaded word.
Oh, absolutely. And well, and it takes it from 0 to 100.
It does. It
Yeah.
does. And there's a big difference between, you know, Angola prison, and, it's probably not called that anymore, but that's in Louisiana, and it's one of the worst prisons systems around. Um, there's a big difference between that and especially like, I mean, even just the way Katie has gone from the Pocatello Women's Correctional Center to the South Idaho Correctional Institute or institution, and then now the East Boise Community Reentry Center. So even though it's technically, I mean, it's a prison by, I guess, the traditional definition, because she can't just leave. She has to sleep there. And she has certain rules, and they have check-ins, and they have counts, and they have everything else that you do in these facilities. But it's the community reentry center,
Ah,
you know, and those are usually the work release centers. There's some kind of community reentry, because um, we don't always say, when they get out of prison. It's more when they re-enter the community. So they're re-entering the community because they were once here and now they're coming back. They're re-entering the community. And so it doesn't put that stigma of being an ex-con,
yeah.
Yeah.
you know. And ex-con is so derogatory,
Mhm.
and it comes with so many connotations, you know?
Well, exactly. You don't know if it's something minor or something like,
No, no,
heinous, and
yeah,
it can take it to the even a level of fear and distrust.
right. And 16% of the women currently who are in Idaho prisons um, are not violent crimes at all.
Yeah.
And I would say that that's probably true across the country. Most of the people who are in any kind of facility, I mean, think of how many, I mean, there are hardened, there are crimes that are really heinous,
Yeah.
and that is a fact. Um, but but even that, um, they are still humans.
Oh, yeah.
They still deserve a level of humane treatment. And in some of the systems and some of the facilities, people, I mean, and to go out into the public and talk about this, I mean, I was even talking to a neighbor and about something and said something about I don't know what, and he said they did the crime, they need to do the time. Who cares? We're not voting for that thing to give them better accommodations. It's not a hotel. They don't deserve that. It's like you don't even know what they did. You know, and so, but that's the mentality. That's the mentality. And so I don't even know all the places to, and all the ways. I just, the main thing is that they're residents. And
Yeah.
that's what they are. They're residents. They're not prisoners,
Really,
you
I
know.
really like.
I'm sure you could Google it or
Yeah, you
probably
can, I'm sure.
chat
Yeah.
it and the appropriate languages to use and things like that. Yeah, I
And we
bet.
call them formerly incarcerated,
Yeah. Okay.
Ah,
formerly incarcerated, or the incarcerated, you know, because they are incarcerated. I mean, and that's not like, that's just describing it. It's not really derogatory. Um, but instead of saying the prisoners at the prison, it's the residents at the facility. And I know it's just words, but words matter. And they carry power and vibration.
if we want to help with, again, the correct term, where they can come out successfully
Hmm.
and rejoin their community,
Yes,
that is what we all want.
it is. And it benefits everyone.
Yes.
It benefits everyone. Um, and so, I mean, I've had to really, I don't know, it's just a shift in thinking, and
Well, it goes along with compassion already. And I know myself to be a compassionate person.
right.
And so, how do I have compassion? How do I apply that same compassion? And I hear what you're saying with respect and love and, you know, just again, compassion, respect, and, helping to benefit.
And you know how we teach in our classes that, we send Reiki to people that we don't like. Sometimes we send
Hmm.
Reiki to politicians. We send Reiki to um, whatever, you know, ex-spouses or ex-boyfriends, to people that, you wouldn't just think, oh, I'm just going to send him some Reiki. And so we might have to like go that extra step to send to those people that we think we might not like. Um, but this is the same thing. I mean, like you said, it's about having compassion for people, and that, um, I mean, they're the ones who need it. I mean, we all need it. The politicians need it. I mean, they all need it, and especially the people who are not nice, because somebody was not nice to them, and that's what they learned. And so, You know, those are the people who need our Reiki and our compassion. So, and a lot of the residents, even some of the ones that I've met, they still have this wall up,
Sure.
you know, that they have to be so tough because they've lived in a tough world,
Yeah.
you know. And so, if you can soften it or like help them realize that they don't have to keep that wall up all the time, that, you know, there is a place and there are people out there who care.
Hold space for them to feel that frequency of
Yeah,
compassion and love
absolutely.
that they may not have had a lot of in their life.
Right. And that they're unaccustomed to, they don't even really know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
And that's not just, you know,
Yeah.
the formerly incarcerated or the incarcerated. That's not just them. It's people in general.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But, you know, but that's what I mean. They're no different than anybody else who needs that.
Mm.
You know, we all need that.
Yes.
I'll take a little of that. You know? So
Wow, Jenny. Well, this has been just, it went by fast.
I
So,
did.
It's so fast. I know.
And
I can't
I
believe
know I
it.
talked a lot.
no,
That's
it's
great. We wanted you
fascinating.
to.
Yeah, it's fascinating because, as I said, it's not a conversation that we've had on this podcast before. And so, yeah, I think that there's going to be people that are inspired by it. And also, even if it's not in this exact arena, that you can go into different arenas. And these are
Sure.
the places that Reiki's usable too. And once Katie has returned to the community and recalibrated, and we would love to have you both on if you are up for it as
Love
well.
her.
That would be
Yeah,
really, yeah, that would be really exciting to be able to speak to her. But I know all of that takes
oh yeah.
time, and
Oh, I know.
yeah, yeah. So, but when you are both ready, that would be fun to have her on along with you as well in the
And I
future.
bring her up in many of my classes, and so a lot of my students feel like they already know her.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be great when they can actually meet her in person.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, go ahead and take some time and tell everybody where they can find you, your website and socials, and you have a podcast, as I said. So,
Yep. So my website is thepeaceroom.love, and we have Facebook is the Peace Room Boise, and then we have Instagram, which is our website, thepeaceroom.love, and then we also have a podcast, 5 Minutes of Peace. And we figured that, you know, it's a waking podcast, so it's not like, you know, fall asleep. It's 5 minutes apiece, and it's on all platforms. And it might be an excerpt from a book. It might be, we had some people on there drumming. We've had people writing their own little meditation that's a waking meditation. It might be inspirational, whatever. It's just when you just need 5 minutes apiece, just to give yourself 5 minutes. And who can't use 5 minutes out of the day to just like stop and breathe and relax and give 5 minutes to yourself? Um, and we've been doing it for about 2 years. So,
good for a walk when you're on a
yeah,
walk. Yeah,
yeah,
Mhm.
I like to listen to it then. Yeah,
yeah. So,
it's a great
uh,
concept.
and
We
I'd
all
love
need
to have
5 minutes.
y'all do the 5 minutes apiece when
Yeah, anytime. Yeah, we all need 5 minutes of peace right now.
you do. You do.
It's one of those
You
times.
do. And
Yeah,
and
we do.
multiples of five.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. There you go.
Well, and it's amazing how quickly 5 minutes can really just drop you into your center too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's been great. And Mark, my husband, is my technical director on that. So he's the one who we schedule with him, and then they do it over Zoom, and we put the music behind it, and so it's really easy for people to do. We recently had Chris Valentine.
Oh,
Yeah, and so yeah, so I'd love to get y'all on there for 5 minutes
We'd
apiece.
love to.
Okay,
yeah,
I'll have you connect with Mark.
Mm.
perfect. For everybody that's listening, of course, Colleen and I can be found at ReikiLifestyle.com. When this is released, we do have an animal Reiki in-person class coming up at the end of July. So I know this will be released in June, so there may be a few spots left. That, of course, will be in the descriptions and show notes. And then we'll be at the retreat in Sedona. And so it'll be nice to see it. Jenny, I wasn't at the year that you and Kelly went.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like funny. I'm like, have I ever actually met you in person? I feel like I know you in
Oh, yeah,
person.
and I've met you several times,
Okay,
and you came in while I was teaching, well, while I was taking Colleen's class too.
that's right. Okay, yeah, I'm like, I know I've met you in person before,
Yeah,
but either way, over online and everything, I feel like, we get to know each other so well. So,
Uh,
yeah. So, anyways,
how to get to the Reiki retreat information for those, since we brought it up so much.
yes.
oh yeah,
So I just usually go through
Mhm.
reikiclasses.com.
I
I
think
know
it's
there's
under
a Reiki
Reiki Retreat
retreat,
Sedona also.
Reiki retreat Sedona. Okay. And if anyone is thinking about it seriously, it is absolutely wonderful. And you've heard a little bit about it today. So I just wanted to mention that too.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank
Bye
you.
now. Thanks,
Thank
Jenny.
you.
Thanks.
Hugs to Sydney.
Yes.